Welcome everyone. Today it is the 27th of March. On the 13th of March in San Diego, the leaders of the United States, Australia and the United Kingdom held a press conference where they revealed details about the AUKUS Pact, which will deliver submarines to Australia. It is not an exaggeration to say that in New Zealand, international policy thinkers and academics got shocked after the announcements. Now, what will be the consequences for New Zealand of this deal, and what can New Zealand do? That's what we are going to discover today. Well, the first reaction of policy thinkers was divided. On the one hand, Jerry Brownlee, for example, former opposition defense and foreign minister, said that it was certainly negative because the pact itself showed that China was threatening the international system, and from this point on, because New Zealand is a military ally with Australia, New Zealand will operate in a more risky international environment. Jeffrey Miller at the Democracy Project said that the deal was altogether terrible news for New Zealand, and he hoped that political leaders will not talk ourselves into World War III. On the other hand, there are thinkers who see the positives of New Zealand being left out from AUKUS. Helen Clark, for example, said that any association with AUKUS might endanger and damage New Zealand's independence in foreign policy making. Robert Patman, professor of international relations at the University of Otago, said that actually it might be positive for New Zealand being left out, because it's gonna be easier to elaborate on trade relations with China. Now, on the technical level, we have to see that it might have consequences for New Zealand's nuclear-free policy, because at the moment, nuclear-powered and nuclear-armed submarines or any surface vessels couldn't visit New Zealand's territorial waters. Because Australia, through the CDR, Close Defence Relations, is an ally to New Zealand, the country has obligations towards New Zealand, and in case these nuclear-powered submarines would need port entry, they might be excluded from New Zealand. So it's a technical question, but some analysts might just say that it is theoretical, because it's unlikely that these submarines will need entry to New Zealand's waters. Okay, on the political front, however, I see large difficulties, because regarding the AUKUS contract, there are at least three main contradictions which cannot be easily explained. I have an idea what might lay behind these contradictions, but I am not at liberty to say those in YouTube. I will compose a video essay on Patreon, and I will signal when it is ready. I will put it there. But what are these contradictions that led me think that there is something more in the background than what we can see? First, analysts like, for example, Nicholas Koo said that Australia was under pressure after 2020 from China. That's the reason why Australia entered into this contract. Now, the pressure might be that China is more assertive in the Pacific region, but these pressures were already known in 2015 and 2017 when China signaled that that the country wanted port entry for fisheries in these Pacific islands, and I think it was Tuvalu or Kiribati where China also had a telecommunications contract. So it was already obvious that China had a stake in the region. okay, after 2020, the stakes were raised because Kiribati announced that they will no longer hold a marine reserve from fisheries, and analysts thought that it was China which forced this entry from Kiribati. And the next step was in the end of 2022 when the Solomon Islands contracted China for military cooperation. Now that's a red rag, but still, I don't see that there was anything new after 2020. And in 2020, Australia already behaved as a proxy for the Five Eyes countries, because it was Australia that raised in May 2020 that the origins of the COVID-19 virus must be discovered. Now this announcement angered China, and yeah, China sanctioned the Australian beef export. So unlike increasing pressure from China, it was Australia that changed its attitude towards China. So something is not entirely clear in the background. Now, the other big contradiction is that in 2016, Australia signed a contract with France, and the contract would deliver 12 assault submarines for Australia. These submarines would not have been nuclear powered, and the tenure of the contract would be the similar 30 years. But guess what? The price would have been only 90 billion Australian dollars instead of 358. Now, within AUKUS, Australia will receive only 8 submarines, not 12. That's a first. Second, 4 times the price. It's a bit expensive. Now, why would Australia do that at all? And also because Australia cancelled the deal with France, Australia was willing to pay almost 600 million Australian dollars as cancellation fee to France. So it's not clear. Practically, the Auditor General in Australia might question why the shift in alliance in a deal. Does anybody know? No. Well, there might be an explanation behind this, but it involves other NATO countries too. In 2014, NATO decided to increase its military spending, and the target was that by 2024 they should increase their military spending to 2% of the GDP. Now, this deal for Australia implies that Australia would pay $12 billion more a year on military spending, on defense. At the moment, it is about $32 billion a year, which is roughly 1.5% of Australia's GDP. With this additional 12 billion, defense spending comes to 2% of the GDP. So practically what happened is that AUKUS filled in the gap. Yeah, I can't find words for this kind of treason. 4 times the price for the same service what the France deal might have delivered anyway. For the same tenure. Unbelievable. The French tenure would be until 2050 as well. So I just can't believe why on earth this is happening. Now, the third big contradiction is that according to the AUKUS Pact, China means a systemic threat. and China also has the power and the ambition to modify the existing international order. But the first submarines will arrive only in 2030, so there is no hurry. And it seems there is private lobby interest in the background, because I do believe those who are behind this deal do want to see this contract till the end, so they can harvest Australia's higher defense spending. Well, in 2021 and 2022, Australia was spending $1.7 and $1.6 billion in the Pacific region and as international aid. Now, with the former France Pact, Australia would spend $3 billion, so they would have an additional $9 billion to assist the Pacific region countries, which would serve as a security guarantee. I don't know what the logic of this AUKUS deal is at all. Anyway, coming to New Zealand, well, because we don't see what is in the background of this deal, we can't really see what kind of risks might emerge in the future. And this gives a shady outlook. What New Zealand can do is actually simple. There is an academic in Wellington, David Kepi, who believes that New Zealand should do everything to get into the AUKUS Pact, because there are, apart from the submarine side of the pact, there are sides which might be New Zealand's interest. And he mentioned research into artificial intelligence, underwater technologies, quantum technologies, whatever, IT, cybersecurity. And okay, this might be an option. However, I agree with Robert Patman on this one, who said that because the Five Eyes intelligence sharing network with Canada, the United States, United Kingdom, Australia and New Zealand will secure that New Zealand will not miss any relevant information on these issues. Therefore, AUKUS is not a necessary thing for New Zealand at all. Well, I have a third opinion. As I mentioned in the introduction to this channel, I could study quite many aspects of life, mathematics, and I was involved in IT developments as well. And I know that by the beginning of the 1980s, computer experts already had 5 generations of computers. The first one used only vacuum tubes to transfer the signals. The second ones used transistors. The third generation was the first, which used integrated circuits. The fourth generation used high-level integration circuits, and the fifth used ultra-high-level integration circuits. Now, after the 1980s, there are no new computer generation, and experts do say that the next step would be the artificial intelligence, but it seems there is a technological block why it cannot succeed. And actually, there were some developments in this area. There were programs already in the 1990s which could learn. And for example, in 1996-1997, Garry Kasparov, the then chess world champion, played with the chess game Deep Blue, and in 1996 Kasparov could still win, but by 1997 the software was developed further and it could beat Kasparov. Now, how this chess game works is simple. It has a large memory of possible permutation of coming steps and risks, and to react a step from the players, the game would assess all the possible permutations and chooses the best option. Now, with the new hype of ChatGPT, actually the ChatGPT doesn't do anything different. It uses text to analyze them and choose the best answer. And it doesn't even have to assess likelihood and possibilities. So what changed actually is just the processing and computing capacity of these learning softwares, nothing else. So there is no breakthrough in artificial intelligence, and I have a sense that it's not gonna happen at all. So for artificial intelligence, there is no interest for New Zealand to participate in AUKUS. Anyway, concerning artificial intelligence, there is also an angle to it what I cannot discuss openly. I will include this into this video on Patreon as well. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you got more nervous than you were before I revealed these details. But I wish you a good night and thank you for watching. See you in the next one.